Hello and welcome to our Ruby Heart live stream with Mark Borax. This is Marcella Eversole, and we are so excited to be with you today. We are in the final week of Mark's book launch. His new book, The Ruby Heart of the Dragon, Sun Signs for Our Times, is coming out this week. I know some of you have been reading the ebook, but now we have the print book available. And yeah, we're just really riding the waves now as we move into the final days of the book launch. And I have a couple announcements before we delve into today's topic. The first is, if you did buy the ebook from Amazon, not the free one that people got as a gift if they pre-ordered the book, we really want to encourage people to write reviews. So if you have been able to read it, because Amazon does all kinds of surveillance now, so you actually have to read the ebook because they can track it. Then please head over to Amazon and write a review. That would be super, super helpful. New Age Book Reviews just gave us a great 5-star review, so you can see that on Amazon, and we'll be posting that around on our different channels as well. Let's see. We did a pre-launch celebration last night at 6 p.m. Eastern online, and we're going to do another one coming up here on June 13th at 6 p.m. Eastern. So if you'd like to join us for another opportunity to delve into some of the content in Mark's book, we'll be doing that next Tuesday night. It was really great too. Thank you for all those that came together. It was just so great to see people from so many different parts of Mark's life coming together to help celebrate with us. And the content was so rich. So we would love to include you if you want to come. And today, we have now completed going through the 12 signs, and we'll actually be offering that as a sort of companion series that people can go through while they're also reading the book or after they read the book. So that will be available soon. We just need to do a couple technical things to get that up and available for folks. And today we're moving into some of Mark's favorite topics that we hope can be really liberating for you on different levels. And, I just want to say this conversation about news stories being one of the best ways to change the world felt really punctuated to me today when Mark and I were just watching one of the presidential candidates that's entering the race that we didn't expect necessarily to be entering the race, and just kind of feeling how within every variation of life, people are generating new stories. And so finding the ones that give you hope and strength can not just be a way to change the world, but can be a way to re-engage you in your own capacity to be in the world. So I just wanted to celebrate the many different ways people are functioning around this topic and changing the world by coming forward in so many different various aspects of life, including politics. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Marcella. And welcome everybody to the Ruby Heart live streams, where I have just finished covering the 12 signs in the last 12 weeks. And now I'm going to add a few extra topics. Today's being stories, news stories, the best way to change the world. Wherever people get together to discuss the problems of our time and come up with some solutions, it's probably rarely mentioned that the best way to address the problems is to come up with a new story. The connection between story and world event is not always easy to spot, but it's profound. Because once you start looking into the stories that you've been following without even realizing that they're stories, because this is the deepest realm of story, is the realm where your thoughts and actions and worldview and self image are based on often what you just think of as the way things are. But it turns out that the way things are isn't always the way they are. It's a story about the way they are. Many people have all kinds of various stories. We all have stories, but it's hard to come up with new ones until you realize that perhaps some major thing of what you've been thinking, maybe a whole lot of how you were raised, maybe your whole understanding of what the world is, can be changed, can be transformed. And this realm is not easy to access and fundamentally change. It really is similar to replacing the plumbing and heating in an old building. It's incredibly structural and it's hidden. In the Middle East, where there's been conflict for ages, especially these days between, let's say, Israel and Palestine, those original conflicts came from clashing stories. Some people follow a story that there was this guy who came down to earth and he was the son of God and he died for your sins. And some other people came along with a different story, which resulted in two different holy books, the New Testament Bible and the Quran. And so you could basically look at the root cause of that conflict as my book is better than your book. No, my book is better. No, my book. It's fighting over a book. It's absurd. Nowadays, however, it's gone beyond the fighting of books and religions. It's not about religion at all over there. The story is about control and dominance, and the headlines are twisted. They've been twisted for ages in the U.S. because the U.S. is a huge hawk nation that is insanely fixated on military superiority, and on the basis of that story, there would never be any possible way that the mainstream media could ever portray the Palestinians as being just. They would always only ever be terrorists. When Israel bombs Palestine, when Israel persecutes Palestinian children, it's always presented as strike back for the horrible acts of the Palestinians. When that's kind of like China versus Rhode Island. It's just so out of touch with anything that really is. And unless you change the story, you can't get to the truth. There'd never in the New York Times be a mention of Israeli terrorism. They're not allowed to do that. They would lose their jobs. There could only ever be Palestinian terrorism. I'm using this example because unless we come up with new stories, even when new experiences are being offered to us, they tend to get referred to the old stories. And we all have these old stories, and some of them are very deep. The story, I am unlovable. I am unlovable. It runs throughout the human species. So if somebody comes along and loves someone who's really running an old story of being unlovable, the that new love that's being offered may get referred to all the old circuits, the circuits of unhappiness, circuits of self-negation. But if you get a hold of your hidden stories and are able to still love yourself, even to love your unlovableness, when you realize you may be running the story, I am unlovable, if you can even love that, because why? Because it shows you more of what you've been creating unconsciously. When you ferret out the tales you've been carrying around that you may not have even realized were stories, because you probably inherited them from people who were running similar stories without knowing they were stories. This is just the way it is. All men lie and cheat. Men lie and cheat. That's a story. It's not that men don't lie and cheat. It's just that when that's the story that's underneath the truth, then you meet a man who doesn't lie and cheat. You're not really able to meet the newness of it, because your story is filling the psychic space between you and that man. Or women are undependable. Women are undependable. And then comes along a woman who's dependable. You're not really meeting her so much as you're meeting your story. Your story's getting laid over her. There are stories of gender and ethnicity and religion and economic class. And before Joseph Campbell died, the great mythologist, he said the world is suffering for lack of a new story. We need a new story. The old stories are losing hold. We have to come up with something new. I've spent my life since then coming up with stories of the soul. When somebody comes to me for an astrology reading, I'm digging down into why did their soul even choose to reincarnate? Where have they been in past lives? What are they trying to learn? Why did they come back? What are they doing here? And I've done this work enough for the last 40 years and just wrote a whole book using a lot of that material in order to come up with stories of hope and regeneration to replace the old stories of fear and self-negation. And when I'm looking into the nature of an individual to understand what is their soul's purpose, why did they come back? What are they doing here? Where are they really trying to go? The answer is always the same, but there's many variations on how to do it. The what is not hard to figure out. You came back here for the same reason that I did, and so did everybody, which is to get to the love, to get to the deep love buried inside you, to recognize the perfection of your own nature. That even underneath the imperfection, even underneath your blind spots and your old stories that you might not have known are stories, is a perfection. Till you dig through enough conditioned layers like an archaeologist, you can't get down to the love. You can't get down to the core self, the soul of you. But when you get there, it always amounts to love. That's why you're here. That's what you're doing. But where the real challenge comes in is, okay, then how? How do I get to a new story of love, hope, regeneration? How can I replace some of the stories I'm carrying that I don't even know I'm carrying? This is how I use astrology. And I just want to stop to check with my studio cohorts to see if there's any questions or comments.
I would actually say what you are about to go into is exactly what I'm definitely asking and wondering, please. The how.
How? Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So the how has a variety of different ways that all stem from the strength of your commitment. In other words, once you become aware that you've been following old stories and they're not fully serving, and you want some new ones and you're not quite sure how to get there, your commitment to want to get there, to need to get there, has to penetrate your habitual assumptions and actions and energy patterns deeper than they are. So you can't just decide one day, I'm going to get to new stories. It has to come from a very deep place, like something something that has to become one of the most important things in your life, and it needs to take precedence in the center of your soul. So the how comes from deepening your intentions. That's the first step. You have to really care. You have to really fall in love with this idea that there's some new way to engage with self and other. There's some new way to engage with world. That level of commitment needs to be renewed, especially until you really get method, until some new ways of executing that intention appear to you. You have to really work to deepen your commitment. It's not here yet. There's something new I can get to. I know there's another way to do things. I'm not quite there yet. I know I'm still somewhat caught in my old stories, but I desperately want to break out. I'm not sure how to do it, but I'm going to do it. I have to do it. Who are the people in my life that make me feel like I could do it? Who are the people around me that I see that they're doing it? They're breaking out. They're coming up with new stories. And then you can find a way to borrow ideas, energy, patterns to kind of imitate those people in life or in literature or cinema or drama, theater, to imitate those characters, even if they're fictional characters, like Frodo Baggins or somebody is a pretty good person to imitate. Um, I'm never going to get away with that. I'm not quite the Frodo archetype, but my point is they don't have to be people that are living all around you, though they might be. There needs to be some way to be that will lift you through the temptation to backslide into the old unconscious stories. How's that sound, Brooke? Any other questions in or out of the studio? Questions, comments? Okay, so in order to recognize when you're releasing old stories and opening to new ones, actually, sometimes you just have to release the old without having the benefit of a new one to replace it with. Sometimes there needs to be a kind of a limbo state where you pull back from being so active, pushed out in the world, which is a hard thing to do for most people nowadays because we're all so pushed out. We just get driven out from sanctuary. We just get pushed and driven and pushed. And sometimes the best way to come up with new stories is to just let go of the story that you're supposed to be always doing all these things, and that you should be, and you better be, and you have to, because those are stories. Maybe you have to, but you should at least challenge the stories. Even when you find yourself doing something, even when you find yourself walking into a room of your house, there's this moment with which you can look at, do I really need to be walking into this room, or is this like some reflex action? Or maybe you're walking away from somebody you're in relationship with, and is that what I really need? Do I need to be walking away? Do I have some story that says when these kinds of things happen, I walk away? Why am I going into this room? What am I really doing? If we don't dig down deeper underneath the everyday stories of daily life, the poisonous tales of our time are going to poison us. The newspapers are filled with toxic tales. Politics is filled with delusional stories. Media is cranked up to keep people scared shitless, because a terrified populace is very easy to control. They're so off balance. They're in such a state of fear that anything that comes along that would seem to put them out of their misery and give them some false stories to cling to, they're going to. So it really comes down to how willing you become to ask yourself, where is a way to go that feels really good on a deep level? Not just how do I keep everything going? See, the state of fear right now is so ramped up around the planet that a lot of people feel if all they could do is barely manage to hang on and keep things going the way they used to be, that would be an amazing, massive accomplishment. But that's not enough, because keeping the old things going keeps the old things going. And so we need stories of love to replace stories of hate, stories of regeneration to replace stories of destruction, stories of magic to replace boring, deadening stories. And there's a hunger that I feel growing in our species to use this moment. Maybe we're getting lost. Maybe humanity is ending. Maybe Earth is on the way out, but it's not there yet. And facing this moment, it's like a respite. Maybe we're all going to lose it, but we haven't yet. That's power. There's something truthful and honest about looking into the soul and out at the world and realizing this could be the beginning of the end, could be the end of the human race, could be the end of life on Earth, but it ain't yet. Therefore, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Where is my magic? Where can I fly? Not just maintain, not just keep it all going. Where can I prosper? Where can I radiate? Where can I come alive? Because there's so much trapped life force inside our species. At this point, we're like a gigantic catapult that's been pushed down and back and down and back and down and back. And that's a lot of power. That's a lot of trapped energy. The lion of the species is just crammed down and waiting to spring. So looking at big and little stories, the state of the world, or even just your own relationship with yourself, if you become open and willing to find a new story, that is the first major step. That's a huge step. That's your willingness to think, well, maybe something incredible and magic could happen. Maybe something amazing could happen. Maybe things could really change for the better. And they'll have more of a chance of doing that when you become fed up with the old stories, both your own and other people's. Marcella, are there any final things we want to say to people before we sign off? Can't hear you.
Let me try that again. Subscribe.
Subscribe. My new book's out. I am so excited. It's taken me my whole life to write like this. Nobody has ever seen an astrology book anything like this. Forget everything you ever knew about the zodiac. The book it's a wild read. You're going to want to go over it and go back over it. There's so much in there. I'm so psyched at my promotion teams, at the hard work that Marcella and Brooke and our students and the College of Visionaries and Wizards and our promotional teams. We have a lot of people in different parts of the planet now really pulling for more and more and more people to find out about this book. And I'm so happy that I lived long enough to be able to reach this climactic point in my writing, my art, my astrology, and my life. So thank you. Thank each of you for your support.
Yeah, and also on a deeper note, I do just want to recognize the potency of your words today, Mark. It's really easy to get pretty despairing during these times. And so thanks for a real practical step, which sometimes is actually letting go of both the stories that we keep going because they make us feel a certain way, whatever that way is, that we're addicted to feeling, and being able to let them go and let something else in. But also to just be really on guard for how many stories we're being penetrated with by external forces that have nothing to do with our deeper nature and who we are. So I just really want to honor you for the important things that you're saying, and the reminder that we have a lot of control over how we formulate our lives based on the stories we tell ourselves. So thanks so much for that beautiful offering today.
You're welcome, Marcella. And thank you, Brooke, for supporting us. Thank you, all our viewers and readers and listeners. I just launched a book, The Ruby Heart of the Dragon, that has the power to change the world. And may it be so.
May it be so.
Oh.
Thank you.
Let's do this. Let's do this closing, y'all. I'm going to get it. Oh, gosh. Hey.
We got this.